iHeart, get ready. Fantasy football is here. Welcome to the Scout Fantasy Show. ScoutFantasy.com is home to the Fantasy Football World Championships and the best players in the world. Real money winners giving their secrets to help you win. Now exclusively on iHeart. This is the Scout Fantasy Show with your host, the one, the only, Dr. Roto.
Everybody, it's Dr. Roto. Get out the insurance cards. Get out the copay. The office is open, my friends. All right, we're going to have the Seattle Mariners podcast today. Looking forward to talking about the Mariners. Really like them this year. But we'll do some news and notes first. So let's take a look. The Rockies closer situation is starting to take a turn. Looks like right now, if people had a guess, that Greg Holland is going to start the year as the closer. Now, I'm not sure that this is the brightest move, but it makes sense because Adam Ottavino is there, and I think this team really likes Ottavino. But I think they see him as a two-inning guy, and Holland clearly isn't. So the Rockies starting staff, as we know, we're lucky if they can get through 6 innings. We really know that, right? So the question is, can they get through 6 innings? Get the ball to Ottavino somewhere in the late 7th inning, early 8th inning, and get to Holland in the 9th and close this out. Maybe he doesn't have to do 2 innings at a shot, Ottavino, but as Andrea Lamont and Lenny Melnick call it, we call it the effector, the guy who can give you the outs when you need them to be most effective. So let's say there's 2 runners on in the 6th inning, Ottavino comes in. Maybe there's a runner on the 8th inning, Ottavino comes in, and you just bring in Greg Holland for the 9th inning. Greg Holland has done it before. He was an outstanding closer. He was injured. We know that, but he's back. Is he 100%? I think that remains to be seen. But if I'm the Rockies, I agree with giving Holland a shot because I think it just deepens my bullpen, makes my bullpen better, makes Ottavino more effective. If I'm not mistaken, I think they still have Mike Dunn there, who I like as a lefty out of the bullpen, right? Jake McGee is there. So I think they've got guys, and you need Ottavino to be the righty out of the bullpen because I've got Dunn and McGee. So if I've got Ottavino, McGee, and Dunn to rotate around with Greg Holland as my closer, I could be slightly more effective than I'm anticipating. Okay? So John Gray, Tyler Anderson, Chatwood, we know these guys are all good. Okay? So I don't know if anybody saw this. This was news. This happened recently. Very sad news. Chad Bettis has testicular cancer, and he's going to be taking chemotherapy. So I don't know whether we're going to see him this season. So the Rockies, they lose Tom Murphy for at least 4 to 6 weeks with a fracture. They lose Ian Desmond with a fracture, and they lose Chad Bettis to cancer. This is rough. This is absolutely rough. Their 4th starter probably is going to be a guy named Jeff Hoffman. I don't know. I mean, the guy was good at AAA. I don't know what that equates to. You know, AAA in Albuquerque and pitching in Colorado, maybe it's not that much different. I'm not sure. Maybe he's got a shot. Maybe a guy named German Marquez. He's very young. I mean, this guy's a real baby here. But, you know, he's shown that he has fewer walks than Hoffman, but he lets up a lot of long balls. That's not very good either. So we're going to have to watch this closely with the Rockies there. But that's the big news that Greg Holland right now, if I had to guess at this exact moment in time, I would say that he is the closer and Ottavino is more of the effector. Now, I still think that a guy like Ottavino can get 10 or 15 saves. So I don't want people to feel like, well, Ottavino's not going to save anything. No, he's going to have really good numbers. He's going to get 5 or 10 saves. He's going to be in position to help them. I'm just not sure it's in a huge position to do wonders for a fantasy roster in terms of saves. So he can help in other categories, right? He can certainly help in other categories, but the saves that if you were counting on 40 from him, you're probably not going to get it. You're probably going to get more like 10. All right, but let's turn our attention to the Seattle Mariners and let's do our podcast preview here. We always begin at the catcher position, and I tend to like Mike Zunino more than most people do. Mike Zunino is 25 years old. It seems like he's been around much longer, but this guy's got big power. The problem is he strikes out in droves. 1 out of every 3 times up, he strikes out. He's got to cut down on the strikeouts. He's a hacker. Now, when he connects, the ball goes very far, right? But he strikes out way too much. So I will take a shot on Zunino as a second catcher. I will take a shot on him as a second catcher, not a first, right? I'm writing that down right here. You hear that, right? I'm writing that down. I just can't get Zunino as a first catcher because of the batting average. But as a second catcher, for a guy who can get me some home runs here and there, I have some slight interest. Not a lot, some slight interest. First base is going to be something that you're going to see evolve for Seattle. I'm very familiar with Dan Vogelbach. I know the family. He's from Fort Myers, Florida. I'll tell you this, the kid can hit. Dan Vogelbach can hit. But Seattle is going to be very careful with how they use him. What do I say? They signed Danny Valencia in the offseason. Danny Valencia really crushes left-handed pitching. Dan Vogelbach crushes righties. So this is a perfect platoon, right? Vogelbach and Valencia. And I'm feeling comfortable using both these guys in daily because they can hit. Here's my one problem. I think Dan Vogelbach is clearly your first baseman of the future. Does it stunt his growth if Valencia gets too many at-bats? I know you don't want him to strike out too much as a rookie, and I know you want him to get confidence, but where's the confidence if you don't let him hit against lefties? It's like Justin Bour. If you tell somebody they can't do something, eventually they believe it. But Dan Vogelbach can mash. This is a hitter. This guy can hit the baseball for power. He's a big, big dude. Okay? In AAA in Iowa, hit .318 with 16 home runs and 300 at-bats. I mean, that's the kind of hitter he is. This guy don't play around. This guy really can hit. Now, he may start off slowly, but you're going to be impressed with him as the year goes on. You're always going to be impressed with Robinson Cano, don't you know? Robinson Cano, where did that power come from last year? I mean, I didn't see that one coming. 39 home runs when his previous high was 33 back in 2012. I mean, everybody hit for more power in baseball. I'm not sure that Robinson Cano is a true 39 home run hitter, but could get me 29, and I certainly like him to get me 29. He's a good player. I mean, he's a second-round player for sure. He's a 4-category star. Doesn't have the speed. He's got the power, the RBIs, the runs scored, the average. What more could you possibly want? Seriously, what more could you possibly want? All right, Seattle made an interesting trade in the offseason. They traded for Jean Segura. Now, here's what I like and what I don't like about the trade. Jean Segura had an amazing year last year. He had .319 for the Diamondbacks. He had 20 home runs. He had 64 RBIs. He had 102 runs scored. He had 33 stolen bases. That was a career year for this guy. So they absolutely trade. I mean, if you added his 2 years before that, it was almost close to his last year. That's how good he was last year. So they gave up Taijuan Walker and Ketel Marte to get Segura. Pretty big trade, right? So they're banking on Segura being as good as last year. I don't think that's possible. I don't think he's going to be as good as he was last year. But that said, they brought him to Seattle for a reason. They want him to run. They want him to create havoc on the base paths. They're going to give him carte blanche to run. This guy is going to steal 30 bases for sure. For sure. Okay? Make no bones about it. He's going to steal 30 bases for sure. Right? So this guy's an offensive weapon. So if you need speed, Segura's a guy who can absolutely give it to you. Right? He may not give you the power from last year, but he's certainly going to give you that speed. So I'm looking at like 10 to 15 home runs and 30 to 40 stolen bases. Kyle Seager is one of my favorite third basemen. I just love how consistent he is. I mean, here's the last 5 years. 2086, 2269, 2596, 2674, 3099, hits 260, 268, 266, 278. He just does the same thing over and over and over again. I love that. You put those numbers right in your lineup. You know exactly what you're getting. And I'll tell you this. I think he can hit more than 30 home runs this year. This might be the year that he does it. This might just be the year that he does it. I like him. I always do. So, yeah, this is a good infield. Vogelbach, Cano, well, Vogelbach / Valencia, the V's. Cano, Segura, and Seager. Yeah, it's good. Nelson Cruz may be close to 40. Not going to lie. 36 years old. But the guy can hit. The guy can hit. Last 3 years, 40 and 108, 44 93, 43 105. The guy can hit. I mean, he is a great, great third-round pick. It's a great third-round pick in any draft. I'm a big fan. So let's take a look at their outfield. I think you're going to find the Seattle Mariners outfield to be very confusing, but when you think about it, you're going to realize that it's better than you think. So they've got Zunino, they've got Cruz, they've got Vogelbach, they've got Cano, they've got Seager. These guys can hit. So what they needed to get in the outfield were guys who could, like I said, create havoc. Jared Dyson. They trade Nate Carnes to get Dyson, who was a fourth outfielder. Guy's 32, but you know what? He could be a great leadoff hitter. Has he ever gotten more than 300 at-bats in a season? No. What if he does? He stole 30 bases and 299 at-bats last year. Give him 600 at-bats. Could he steal 60 bases? Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see how he bats leadoff. I mean, this guy could be Otis Nixon reborn. How about Leonis Martin? This guy, look, Leonis Martin is never going to be the 20 home run guy, but he could hit 10 to 15 home runs and steal 30 bases. So that's a Jean Segura kind of guy. Maybe not the best batting average. You're going to have to bat him a little lower in the order, but I think he's an interesting player because he does a little bit of everything. How about Mitch Haniger? Mitch Haniger, maybe not a lot of steals, but I think he's got tactical speed. I think he's got a little more power than people think. He's certainly hitting well in the spring. So you've got guys in Dyson, Martin, and Haniger that can add a little power, a little speed, maybe a lot of speed in terms of Dyson. I think they round this lineup out very well. This is one of my favorite teams in the American League. I really like what the Mariners are doing offensively. The question is pitching. The question is pitching. First of all, let's turn to closer. I'm a fan of Edwin Diaz. The guy's 22 years old, and man, he throws hard. 51 innings last year, 45 hits, 88 strikeouts, 15 walks. That's a beautiful number. All right, so if you can get him the ball in a pressure situation, you're great. But the problem is, who's their bullpen? Is it Nick Vincent, Steve Cishek, Evan Scribner, Mark Rajaszewski? It's a lot of names there. Spell that one and score. I don't know. That worries me. Their bullpen worries me, not the closer. Closer doesn't worry me. The bullpen, the setup guys worry me. Will they be good enough? Scribner was a guy that we talked about as a possible closing candidate in Oakland. Okay? But he really hasn't shown that he could do that much. Let up 14 home runs in 2015 in 60 innings. That's brutal. But, I think that he should be back this year for the Mariners setting up guys. The question is the pitching again. Felix Hernandez. I think Felix Hernandez, King Felix is only 30 years old. Doesn't he feel like he's like 42? Guy's been pitching since he's 19 years old. He's got close to 2,500 innings. I just think the arm is going to fall off. I don't know when, but I don't want to be holding the bag. It's like musical chairs. You go round and round and round and round, and somebody gets a chair and it's not you. I don't want to be that guy for Felix Hernandez. I just have that feeling it's not going to be good. Speaking of not good, Hisashi Iwakuma. Let me tell you about my Japanese strategy. I want to share it with you. I love Japanese pitchers the first couple of years when they come over. Right? 2012, ERA of 3.16. 2013, 2.66. But now, then it goes up to 3.52, 3.54, 4.12. That's a problem, right? They start to time you. See, these guys have funky deliveries. Funky deliveries. Then the people realize, oh, it's not really that funky. Let me just pay attention. Let me just watch it closely. And then you realize that you can hit these guys. So I think these Japanese guys get worse as they stay in the major leagues. I'm excited about James Paxton. This is a guy who should have a very good year, a lot of strikeouts, kept the walk ratio down, let up too many hits. But this is a guy that experts are in on. People are in on James Paxton. They're also in on Drew Smyly, who they got from the Rays. I mean, he's looked very good for Team USA. At one point, he was a very desirable pitcher. In 2013, 2014, Smyly was a very good pitcher. Last year, he was a train wreck, but if you go back to the years before that, this guy was a good pitcher. So could he bring it again? I think he could. I think Smiley's very sneaky. So I hate Giovanni Gallardo. I hate Chris Heston. I hate the other guys. I'm not on Felix. I'm not on Iwakuma, but I think Paxton and Smyly might provide reasonably good value for you in your drafts. The question is this, and this is very important. You're not the only one who listens to this podcast. Hopefully, tens of thousands of you are listening to this podcast. I'm not delusional, but hey, we can live large, right? Many of you are doing your fantasy baseball preparation. You're studying. You're going over your players. You're learning your player pool. You found James Paxton. You found Drew Smyly. You're like, yeah, these are some sleepers I have. Good for you, right? You're not the only one. Everybody out there is doing the same thing you are. Everybody out there has the same sleepers because there's so much information that's coming at you from different angles. Now, maybe every once in a while you get a guy you've never heard of, right? Every once in a while you get a guy, Dan Vogelbach. Maybe you didn't know him until I told you he was a really good hitter. Maybe that one. But for the most part, the Drew Smileys and the James Paxtons of the world, everybody knows. So what's my point? You're at your draft, and you want Drew Smyly, and you think the right round for him is round 11. Don't you think your competition is thinking the same thing? Don't you think your competition is wondering the same thing? When are they going to get Drew Smyly? So what you have to do is you have to be at least one round ahead of your competition. You have to be. You have to be ahead of your competition because if you're not going to strike early, they're going to strike you. So you've got to be ahead of the game. So if you think Drew Smyly's an 11th round player, you might want to start thinking about him in round 9. Now, I'm not telling you to take him in round 9, but I'm telling you if you want him, you better be thinking about him in 9 and maybe taking him in 10. Because you need to say to yourself, if I know this guy, the guy next to me knows this guy, we all know this guy, and I'm not going to get this guy. Right? I got a guy who knows a guy who sees a guy. And the problem is, you wait for round 11, and somebody goes, Drew Smyly, and you're like, oh, God, that's the guy I wanted. Sniped again. I don't want you being sniped. I want you getting your guy. Think about it a round or two sooner, especially for a hot sleeper name. Now, you can wait on Dan Vogelbach. He's not going to go before around 25. Okay? But Drew Smyly, everybody knows how good he is, and everybody knows what he's capable of. Don't wait till round 11. Don't say, oh, the ADP tells me round 11. Sometimes a high-stakes move is to jump on a guy before so you make sure you get him. That's the Dr. Roto move. All right, but right now it's time to put away the insurance cards, put away the copay. The office is closed, my friends. I want to encourage you to check out scoutfantasy.com. Enter the promo code ROTO, that's ROTO. You pay for 1 month, you get 2 more for free. You get access to our team outlooks from Sean Childs. You get Adam Ronis' player profiles. You get my podcast, My Fantasy in a Nutshell series. You get Ryan Barra for PGA. You get Y2KC for MMA. You get Rob Garriak and Steve Renner and all these guys in the message board forums. Dennis Roy helping you with DFS. You've got Cappy and Kick helping you with NHL. Nate Weitzer for NBA. We're just a community to help you win your fantasy leagues, whether it's seasonal or DFS. So be part of the Scout Army. ScoutFantasy.com. Promo code ROTO. Pay for 1 month, 2 more for free. That's how we roll. All right, guys. Wishing you well. Have a great day. Be well and take care.
Thanks for listening to the Scout Fantasy Show. There's never been a better time to join the Scout Army. Visit ScoutFantasy.com. Use the promo ROTO for 2 months free. And don't forget, fantasy players, please thumbs up the podcast on the iHeart app. See you next time. Go Scouts!